Good morning, it's November 7th, and this is To My Liberal Friends. If you enjoy the podcast, hit the subscribe button on YouTube or follow me on TikTok. Who are the winners and who are the losers in this Tuesday's election? It's worth a look, and some of them might surprise you. First and foremost, Donald Trump is a huge winner. Here is a guy who's been demonized by Democrats and their cohorts in the media for 8 years. When he won in 2016, many Democrats refused to accept his win. There was an effort by a group of Democrats to try and find some legal objections to certify Trump as the winner. It failed, of course, and it set the tone for how Democrats would both view and treat Donald Trump. They accused him of collaborating with Russians. They impeached him twice, both times failing to gain a conviction in the Senate. They've called him a fascist. They've likened him to Hitler. They repeatedly called him a threat to democracy. They charged him with multiple crimes, took him to court, and used lawfare to try and stop him. Through all of this, he remained steadfast. He went through the Republican primaries this year and emerged as the nominee when many Republicans did not want him back. And Tuesday, all of this allowed him to be vindicated, and he won a sweeping victory over Kamala Harris. The next winner is the Constitution. When Trump won the Electoral College in 2016 and lost the popular vote, this led Democrats to call for abolishment of the Electoral College system. They called it outdated and undemocratic. They ignored why the Founding Fathers set up the system to ensure there would not be a tyranny of the majority. They recognized, even in the early stages of our nation, that we would be a diverse country with varying interests. By winning the popular vote this time around, while sweeping the Electoral College, Trump has taken the wind out of their sails. The group of states that entered into a compact, all of them reliable Democratic states, where they pledged to deliver their electoral votes to the winner of the popular vote. I don't see any of them urging those votes to go to Trump right now. The whole effort smacks of political hypocrisy. Republican members of the House and Senate are winners, and they owe much of their win to Donald Trump. He outperformed himself from 4 years ago in just about every county in the country. That performance allowed him to spread coattails for those members to win close races. In the Senate, the filibuster rule is safe so that members of that august body will be forced to negotiate on key issues. A winner that might surprise you are minority voters, and I'm talking about African American and Hispanic voters. They were expected to simply get in line and do what they were told. I think you all remember Joe Biden telling black voters in Atlanta, quote, "If you don't vote for me, you ain't black," end quote. But they could see what the Democrats were offering was simply not enough. They don't like being talked down to. Stephen A. Smith, the bombastic ESPN host, blasted celebrities like Oprah and Michelle Obama for alienating black voters. He was especially critical of Oprah's comment that voting for Trump meant you would lose the right to vote. Black people grew weary of hearing Democrats say things like, quote, "We're going to raise the minimum wage." It was like that's all they were qualified to get, the minimum wage. Now they can be independent of the Democratic machine and demand the maximum wage. Their votes are in play in future elections, and both parties are going to have to compete for them. That's a good thing for this critical voting bloc. The final winner is the American people. They get a president that is honestly interested in what affects them. They get a president that will not look down on them, that will not call them names like garbage or undesirables. They will not refer to them as flyover people. Donald Trump will connect with the people of this country, and while there was a time that I did not think he could do that, I fully believe he can at this point. The people are saved from Democrats hell-bent on packing the court and jamming a progressive agenda through the legislature. So now we have to turn who are the losers this Tuesday. Well, obviously the big loser is the Democratic Party. They turned their back on a president that was showing obvious signs of cognitive disability. They tried to pretend that he was competent, even when their own eyes told them differently. The American public saw it for themselves when Biden debated Trump back in June. That losing group includes the elites of the Democratic Party, Barack Obama and Nancy Pelosi, who orchestrated the deposing of Biden and forcing him out of the race by threatening him with a 25th Amendment action. In the end, they put up Kamala Harris, a candidate that was not ready for prime time. She could not answer the most basic questions and fell back on canned answers. She never held a formal press conference during the campaign and only appeared with friendly interviews where softball questions were tossed up to her. So the Democratic Party overall was a loser in this campaign. The next loser, unfortunately, is Joe Biden. In some ways, it's unfair. Democrats are already turning on Biden, blaming him for the Harris defeat. He should have stepped down sooner. He should have closed the border. He should not have shut down the economy during COVID. Of course, they ignore that Harris was complicit in hiding the mental frailty of Biden. But Biden's legacy will now be severely tarnished because his own party is turning on him. But in truth, the Democratic elites have only themselves to blame because they did not force Biden out sooner and have a real and vigorous campaign where the winner would have been better prepared to take on Trump. Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries are losers today. Schumer's been the Senate Majority Leader and controlled the agenda there. Jeffries was pretty sure he was going to recapture the majority in the House and become the Speaker. Both will now have very little power because Trump delivered majorities in both the House and Senate. Finally, the biggest losers are the media. They've allowed themselves to become cheerleaders for the Democratic Party while attacking Donald Trump at every point in time. Even today, some of them refuse to realize that their candidate lost and the man they've demonized won. Trust in the media by the public is at an all-time low, hovering near 35%, and that cuts across all ideological lines. Some in the media have called for protests and told their listeners and readers that they have to be prepared to rebel. The bias they've shown for these many years is now out in the open, and the public sees them for what they are, shills for the Democratic Party. So those are some of the winners and some of the losers, and now we're going to watch how things get organized as we prepare for the transition. This has been To My Liberal Friends. Thanks for listening, and again, hit the subscribe button.